Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly day early comics review video. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where every Monday after the comics have arrived and we're done bagging and boarding them, we divide them up. We read all the ones we couldn't wait to read and all the new issue number ones. Speaking of issue number ones, I think there's like at least 10 of them this week.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, a whole lot. So the point of our show is we do what we call spoiler light reviews. We're going to tell you collectability reasons you might want these books, first appearances, major events. But more than that, we're going to tell you what these are about, who the writers and artists are, what sort of person each book will appeal to. So when you go in your store, you don't see the 27 new titles we're going over and get overwhelmed. So I do believe we're going over 27 books today and all their variants. These books come out this week, this Tuesday, and this Wednesday. Here's the first few in front of us. We have stacks of variants. So without further ado, let's launch in.
Yes, so I'm starting off with a book I've been very excited for. This is DC's The New Golden Age. So I feel like I've got to sell this one a little bit to some people because um, this does not feature Batman. I mean, there's of course a little Batman in it, but um, these are characters I really care about. So this centers around the Justice Society of America. This is a one shot written by Jeff Johns, a bunch of different artists, and this is kind of setting the stage for what's to come in the DC universe with stuff like Justice Society of America that's going to be launching, with Stargirl, books like that, and you can tell there's going to be some branching off stuff later. But I know a lot of people are going to see this be like, I don't really recognize some of these characters because these are characters back from the 40s.
Right.
um, but if you're any fan at all of just like the history of DC and kind of the pedigree of Hal Jordan wasn't the first Green Lantern, Flash wasn't, Barry Allen wasn't the first Flash, that these all had a starting point with other characters. That is what this explores. But it's not only the past this explores; it's the present and the future. So we do have Helena Wayne, that is a character in this, the daughter of Batman and Catwoman. And for her, she has been haunted her entire life by this mysterious character just off to the side. Random points in her life, she'll notice him. You'll see kind of how that goes. And we learned that this is a bigger thing than just with her, that there is so much going around. I think this was even teased in the Justice Society solicitation for the number one for that. That is going around through different time frames and doing something horrible. I won't reveal what it is, but you do find out in this what their plan is, even if you don't necessarily know who the person is. But this has great stuff. Like we do see a justice society that's actually in the future around the same time of the Legion of Superheroes. So this book is chock full of first appearances of recognizable characters, but maybe like other people who take up those mantles. This even has the last few pages of it are a DC style who's who, like the old encyclopedia type books, where you see the characters and you get the description of their alias, their hometown, all that kind of stuff, their origin, their powers. But these are for characters that have been missing from the timeline. So you get characters like the Golden Age Aquaman, who is not the same Aquaman you remember. You get the new Red Lantern, uh, but the like Golden Age Red Lantern. This is so much fun stuff. This is, I think, a great new direction for the DC universe. That if you're a little burnout on every book being about Batman, you have some new characters to jump on board with. Just other things I'll tease you with real quick is there is a major death of possibly the most popular character in the DC universe. Uh, you'll have to say, when that takes place, what that means. Also, there is maybe we're not done with the Watchmen universe just yet, as we saw in the previous book when we had characters like Nostalgia and stuff like that.
Yeah, Flashpoint.
Yeah, in Flashpoint, we get some more of that in here. So this is a great like new jumping on point for a bunch of stuff to come from DC. So I highly recommend you pick this up, even if you're not the most familiar with the characters. I'm sure you've seen some of them before. and you will learn to love them in this. I love these characters, and I really hope that DC continues in this direction because I really like it.
It's a Jeff Johns book, so you know it's sort of a DC flagship book.
Right. And Jeff Johns is doing what he does best and is taking characters that maybe aren't in the spotlight all the time and raising their kind of ranking. He did that with Green Lantern. He did that with Flash. He did that before with the Justice Society. He did it with Aquaman, and now he's going to do it again with this version of the Justice Society. We've got some really good variants. We have, of course, you've got one with Batman on it. I mean, you can't get completely away from him. This is the Mike Allred variant. The Time Masters do play a big part in this as well. So you've got Rip Hunter on there. We've got, this is the Talaski variant with Alan Scott Green Lantern. Very cool. We've got the Pod Knock variant where we see some of the new characters, and I know we speculated before, like, oh, that must be most of the 13 that they said have been taken out of the timeline. There is more revealed than just these in this book. And then finally, we have the 1 in 25 Dan Hip variant. Really cool that we are selling to our customers for $15.
All right, so the first one I'm going over, Fantastic Four is back with a new issue number 1. This one is by Ryan North with interior art by Ivan Coelho and an awesome cover by Alex Ross, who did 2 of the variant covers as well. So I'll be showing you more Ross covers coming up. So of course this follows the end of the last Fantastic Four series, which was done by Dan Slott, where they were going all over the universe, all kinds of big things happening. So what North is doing different in this one is he wants to tell more character-focused stories that are not so universe encompassing.
Mhm.
And this first one is exactly that. This one is about Ben Grimm and his wife Alicia are on a road trip, and they end up in some little quaint town that seems very 1940s. In fact, so much so it's like Twilight Zone, as in the town is caught in a time loop.
Mhm.
So they get caught in the time loop. Now, how would people treat Ben Grimm, who, you know, he is the thing. He is
Yeah.
Rocky all the time. He doesn't turn back to human at all. How would they treat a person like that? Well, obviously, he's a monster to them. But that begs the question, why is there a time loop? How can they get out of it? It's all wrapped up in this one issue. And I think that's what this series is going to be. It's going to focus on some of the team, they're going to go on an adventure, and it's going to be over. Very, very different than what was going on in the previous series. So there are no major first appearances or reasons to collectability other than the fact this is a new number 1 of a new volume of Fantastic Four. But still, good storytelling. The art was very clean, very, very colorful, good coloring to this issue. So if you're just looking for some stories of Fantastic Four that just follow a few characters and keep it small, keep it down on Earth, this is probably the book for you. And it's also just a chance to get it on the ground floor of a new series. You don't have to start at issue number 50 or anything like that.
And I'm sure as much as he wants to keep it one and done stories, eventually we're going to start getting some bigger stories.
Probably.
It's inevitable with a book like Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I would say so. So here is the first Alex Ross variant. I like that you get little snips of all the characters. And then here is the second Alex Ross variant. Now I assume he's going to do one of these for each of the upcoming, issues showing each of the members of Fantastic Four.
Can't wait for the Herbie cover.
Then we have the J. Scott Campbell cover.
Nice.
I like what he did with the logo in the center there.
Yeah.
Here is the Phil Noto variant. Real focus on the blue of their outfits and just the outfits that he chose in that one. Here is the Coelho variant, who is the interior artist. And then we also have, lastly, a 1 in 25 Art Adams variant that we're selling to our customers for $15 while they last.
It's a great cover. Okay, so I mean, talk about this book feels like it's also in a time loop or back in time because next up I have Spider-Man: The Lost Hunt number 1. This is a new miniseries that takes place during the old event, Craven's Last Hunt, all the Craven storyline that happened around the Clone Saga, all of that.
Widely considered to be one of the greatest Spider-Man
I
arcs.
mean, I'd say Craven's Last Hunt is my favorite Spider-Man story, and it's funny he's not even in it a whole lot, but it's so good. But this is Damatius going back to that time where um, it was believed at that time that Ben Riley was the real, I guess, Peter Parker, and that Peter Parker was the clone, and Peter and MJ decide to move together to Portland. So we're actually following that story. It said this is kind of like a uh, story that goes alongside that Ben Riley Spider-Man series that was came out before, not that long ago. This time we're following Peter and MJ, who is pregnant in this in Portland, where a character a lot of people may not be familiar with named Gregor, who is Craven's the guy who basically trained Craven. Now that Craven is dead, is going to come after Spider-Man. So this deals with a lot of um, Peter's feelings about like I'm the clone, a lot of kind of shakiness in his life, trying to move roots and start in a new city, all the while he's being hunted from the shadows by this character. Really fun issue. Definitely feels like the kind of classic Spider-Man storytelling. And if you're a fan of those characters, especially the Craven family of characters, you'll really like this. So and even if you haven't read a lot of the stuff this takes place around, there is a great recap in the end that basically says, if you don't recognize some of these characters or anything, here's what you should know about them while you're reading this. So great, new reader friendly, even though it's based in a previous time. This is our A cover. We have our Beyond Amazing variant, which definitely harkens to Craven's Last Hunt. And we have this Edge variant, as well as I love this one because this looks like you straight up pulled it out of the back issues. This is the 1 in 25 Kyle Hotz variant. I love the trade dressing on that. That's really what makes it look like it could fit in with your old Spider-Man collection. We are selling this to our customers for $25.
All right, so the second issue of Batman Incorporated is out this week. This, of course, is by Ed Bryson with art by John Timms. This has a few first appearances I'll talk about real quick. It has the first full appearance of Sky Spider, who we met at the end of last issue, who was sort of a villain for Ghostmaker. So Sky Spider's first full appearances in this, but this also has two first cameos.
Hmm.
One is a character named Fissure, who is only seen for a little bit, and it's hard to tell if Fissure is going to be a friend or foe. I'm betting on foe. Really cool character design to Fissure. Dark, mostly black outfit, but a lot of tech. It looks like they have powers of like electricity or something of that sort. And then it's the first cameo of a character named Phantom One. Now, Phantom One might be the most important of these because Phantom One is a former sidekick of Ghostmaker. Now, of course, Ghostmaker's current sidekick is Clown Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the old sidekick has to do something to the new sidekick, maybe mean, but also trying to warn. A lot of Ghostmaker's past gets called into question in this issue. So, of course, what's going on is somebody's killing the ex-mentors of Batman and Ghostmaker, and it's up to Batman Incorporated, led by Ghostmaker, to try to figure out who this is. So they have split up into smaller teams, and they're going across the world trying to save these old mentors. The problem is, a lot of them want to stay off the grid to the point they're willing to fight and try to kill the members of Batman Incorporated rather than even admit they were who they used to be. So again, this is just a really good team book. That's what I would say about this. It's not a team that stays all together though. It's a team book of the team has split into mini teams and they're all across the world going against different dangers, but it juggles it really well. Not a boring moment in this book. I think it's a really good read. I liked issue one a lot. I liked when all this started back in Batman Annual,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is just strong all around. Good writing, good art. Really cool to see these characters you don't see too often. The Batman Incorporated characters are not super known
Mm-hmm.
characters in themselves, and with plenty of first appearances and cameos that I think will go somewhere at least within the confines of this book. So that is what Batman Incorporated number two is about. We have the Molina variant, and we have the John Timms design variant. That's Fissure. That's sort of what I was talking about.
Cool. So next up for me, I have a new one from Dynamite. Dynamite's really kind of starting to spread themselves out. We've got Gargoyles coming up, and now we have Lord of the Jungle. So this is, as you can imagine, you're saying, isn't that Tarzan? Yes, this is Tarzan. I think there's some kind of legal rights to the name Tarzan, why they can't call it on the cover, but he is called Tarzan in the book.
That
So
that's happened with Conan before.
yes, yeah, that's how we have like Hyperboreans and all of that. Uh, so what this book is really cool because it's actually written by Dan Jurgens, who is, of course, longtime comic creator back with great stuff like Superman. I mean, he's worked on every character. This time he's putting his spin on Tarzan, and in this, it kind of spans the entire history of Tarzan, starting with his origin, him, being marooned with his parents on an island, and then something happens to his parents. He's raised by apes, that kind of thing. Very cool. The art in this is done by Benito Gallego, who is the artist for the Tarzan newspaper strip that was going on. So you've got a very, if you want to feel like you're almost reading like an old, feels like an old Conan book, like an old Marvel Conan. It's got kind of that art style. But what really surprised me, and I don't want to give away the ending of this issue, but if this goes far in the past, it also goes past the Tarzan stories to what happens after all of that. What happens after Tarzan, uh, all of his adventures? What is he doing then? And you'll have to check it out because it's kind of cool to see young, and then I don't want to say it's like old man Tarzan, but you'll get the idea when you read it.
He goes to the city, becomes a businessman. He gets like the suit and briefcase, but he never puts the pants on. It's still the loincloth.
You may not be too far away from the truth. So, other than your aesthetic description, but you've got this awesome cover. This is the Gary Frank cover. Got some big names on these.
Yeah.
We've got the Dan Panosian variant. We've got the Lee Weeks variant. We've got the De La Torre variant. And this one's really fun. This is the FOC. The artist name is Maine, but it's of course, an homage. And we have, this is your interior artist. This is Gallego. It very much looks like an old, like magazine-sized issue. And then finally, we have the 1 in 10 black and white De La Torre variant that we are selling to our customers for $5.
Okay, so the next book I'm going over, this is my favorite indie read of the week. This is Specs Number One by David Boer with art by Chris Sheehan. So right off the bat, the cover, very reminiscent of They Live, those of you who know that movie. And I think we talked about this on FOC. Now that I've read it, I can say there's a lot of differences, at least so far. In fact, what happens on the cover is not in the book quite yet. This is like the setup issue, but it's a good setup issue. Just the writing's strong, the art is strong, the writing in particular is strong. So in this issue, this is set in the spring of 1987, and there are these two high school kids. They're kind of nerdy kids. Why? Because they read comics. Back in '87, if you read comics, people didn't understand that was going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry someday if you count all the things based on comics later. Anyhow, so they're reading comics. A bully, he bullies them because they're reading comics, and they see an ad for X-ray specs. It's in an older comic though of their brothers, and the X-ray specs say that it grants wishes. So just on a lark, one of them puts the order in, and they talk about what they would wish for and all. Well, what happens when the glasses show up and they work? Now, the thing I'll say is these glasses, so the cover looks like it reveals evil.
Hmm.
That's not what happens this issue. The glasses give them wishes. The wishes have limits. They say it's because it's from a comic. How great can a wish be of glasses from a comic?
Hmm.
So they can do some things, but they can't do big things. It doesn't go into what that means exactly, but I'm fine with that. At
Yeah.
least it sets some kind of rules up. So what happens when the bully corners them outside of school with a knife and the glasses get used to do something a lot bigger than they thought the glasses could actually do? Like, where is this going? On top of that, there are some underlying stories in this where one of them has sort of an unrequited love and a secret being kept from the other one. There's more to it than just the glasses. That's why, like I said, I thought this was a really good read. I'm not sure where it's going. I think the cover hints where it's going.
Hmm.
I think that they're going to end up, in a whole different world. This one's more a little bit lighthearted as you see the fun little wishes they
Hmm.
do, and you see them trying to get over this bully situation. So that's what's going on in Specs number one. We have the one per store Virgin variant that we're selling for $15 to our customers. Then there is the Pulaski variant. And lastly, or I'm sorry, hold up, I might have got off on that, or I might have went wrong. One per store. That's the Sheehan variant I just showed. So let me show it
Okay.
again. This is the Sheehan variant, and then this is the Pulaski variant with our two main characters. And there is a 1 in 10 virgin version of that Pulaski variant that we're selling to our customers for $10.
And who's the publisher on that?
Oh, that's a good question. It's Boom.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like when you put Boom on there, it's like, okay, this has legs. They have a great track record
They
right now with
they've
indie
definitely
titles.
had, yeah, a great track record over the last like 2 3 years
Yeah.
now.
Okay, so once again, going back to the 90s, we have the Death of Superman 30th anniversary special. So this is a big book coming out this week. I do want to show real quick the cover of this one is a gatefold cover. So you've got the back, the front, and this fold out. So very cool.
Nothing 90s about that at all.
No gimmicky covers at all. But it's kind of this is definitely a love letter to that era of Superman, but telling new stories. So we actually have stories from all of the original creators involved with Death of Superman. We have Dan Jurgens, Jerry Ordway, Roger Stern, Louise Simonson. So you get a lot of they were there when this happened, and you can tell that this meant a lot to them. So uh, the main stories, I'll give you just a rough overview. I think the big one is our main story, the Dan Jurgens story, which is about Jonathan Kent. While he's still younger, he learns in school that hey, your dad died at one point defending the city, and he didn't know about that. And the teacher's kind of like, maybe you should go talk to your parents about this. Like, I don't want to be the one that informed you your dad died at some point. Um, but this goes into him learning about his father and the sacrifice he made and kind of like how great of a person his father was. But that's not all because there is something also brewing. There is a very doomsday-like character named Doombreaker that appears in the city, and this time it's up to father and son to take out this Doomsday character. So it's really cool. You'll kind of get a glimpse of what that character looks like on a variant cover. He's a little bit like Doomsday crossed with Man Bat. You'll have to see what that is in it. But we also have a story about Ma and Pa Kent actually watching Superman fight Doomsday on TV. And it's very like emotional story of them kind of helpless to help him, but also knowing what he's doing and how he's protecting people. We have a story about Guardian, who was a big character at the time. He's popped up here and there since then. But we get a character about Guardian, and we get a story about Steel, John Henry Irons. Uh, as well in there. So really cool. There's also some great pinups. Definitely, there's one by Clay Mann that's really nice of Superman and Lois. But if you are a fan of that original story, or once again, kind of the history of DC, this is definitely celebrating that. I don't know if Doombreaker is a character we are going to see be the next big villain in a Superman title. He could always show up again, but at least for this issue, that problem is pretty much solved. So this is our A cover. We have our, there's a lot of coverage for this. This is the Sarmento variant. This is where you can kind of see what Doombreaker looks like, even though that is quite a bit bigger than he is in the book. But he's got four arms. Very, very cool, classic feeling character. We've got the Jim Lee variant. We've got the, let's see, this was the Ivan Rice variant with all of the characters. We have the uh, acetate cover where you can fold that back. I'll let you do that for yourself if you pick it up. We have the, of course, in honor of how it was originally released, the polybagged special. This comes with the book and a black anniversary armband, and I think it also has a poster, though it doesn't say on here. This one will be quite a bit more expensive depending on your store, but just ask your store how much they're selling these for. We also have the 1 in 25 Matina foil variant. This is actually what's under that acetate cover. We're selling that to our customers for $25. And then we have a reprint this week too of the original Death of Superman. This has a kind of cool introduction to it and just talking about the what all that meant for Death of Superman. But this one, I believe, is just $3.99. So if you like a nice reprint of Death of Superman as well, you've got that.
Okay, so I read Black Panther Unconquered. So this is a lot of why we do this show. It's like, what is this exactly? So this is written by Brian Hill with art by Alberto Fauché. And first off, the thing to know is this is just a one shot.
Mm.
Sometimes it is hard to know what books are minis, what books are ongoing. This is a one shot. It's got a cool Alex Ross cover. So I'll tell you what this is about, but I still don't know why exactly they released this, other than, hey, let's just do a one shot. It's not a bad story, but it still doesn't really
The
figure
movie's
into
coming up,
anything.
so maybe.
That's probably it. So in this story, there's a group with a leader who has not been seen since Secret Avengers, like a
Wow.
decade ago. Yeah, this leader, they say the name. I'm like, that's sort of familiar. I had to look it up, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, this isn't a first. This is this person way back from Secret Avengers. Anyway, this group attack a bunch of people in Wakanda. They're after some magical spear. It's some spear that has magical powers. Well, it is up to T'Challa to stop them. He has the help of Shuri, though. She's advising him through, calm, and she's looking up things and telling him things about the group's history and all. And that's basically what the book is about, is he's trying to stop these people getting this powerful spear. It's a one and done. That is it. So that's what's going on in Black Panther Unconquered one shot. So other than the Alex Ross cover, we have this variant by Ryan Stegman.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like that's something we get a lot of customers who pick up a book like that and they're like, "Can you add this to my pull sheet or whatever?" And uh, Marvel doesn't really make it known when something is a one shot or a mini series or
Yeah, occasionally
ongoing.
they do, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. Okay, next up is a quick one, but this is, we're not done with it yet. This is A.X.E, Avengers, X-Men, Eternals, Judgment Day, Omega. So, like a lot of the Omega issues they do after events, this just wraps up some loose ends and kind of where are the characters after the event and what's kind of next for them. So we see individual members of the Avengers and the Eternals, mostly the Eternals, and where stuff like the new celestial Ajak, what is going on with her, um, and we see somewhat of that. Maybe this is going to be leading into that Avengers Assemble special coming up. At least it kind of teases that at the end. But if you were reading the Axe event, you may want to pick this one up. If you're really into the Eternals, you want to see what's next for them. Uh, but if you didn't read that, I definitely wouldn't pick this one up because it heavily relies on you reading that event to get the idea behind it. But just a one shot, just kind of a epilogue to the event. And we have this is the Lozano variant. Very cool.
Okay, so I read Wonder Woman number 793. I really like this issue. So this is by Becky Cloonan. She wrote it with art by Lou Pacino. So this has, and it says it on the cover, the Trinity returns. This is also just a one-shot issue,
Mm.
one and done. And so what is it about? Basically, there is a distress signal from the old Justice League what's it called? The
What?
satellite
Yeah.
watchtower. Yeah, the satellite watchtower, the one in space, is a distress signal. So Wonder Woman and Superman head up there. They meet Batman to see what's going on, and of course there is a danger they must all face together. But more than that, the three of them reconnect. They talk about what they've all been through lately. This does take place before Justice League 75, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it specifies for Justice League 75. But they all kind of talk about the things they've been through. It's pretty cool. They actually have one moment where they do a group hug.
Oh,
I'm not kidding, but it comes up pretty organically. It's
yeah.
not like, come on guys, bring it in. It's at a point in the story and due to the dialogue, it makes sense. And who enacts it is the right person to do it. And even Batman has to be a part of it.
Probably has a grumpy face when he does it.
Yeah, so even though there is a danger here, it's really them reconnecting. And the last like quarter of the story is more like a celebration of them being together again. In fact, they even find some off-brand Oreos on the space station and they try them with Batman worrying about if maybe they've been poisoned or if they stay good because of preservatives at law.
Did they mention they were Martian Manhunters?
No,
That's his thing is Oreos. That makes
I'm
sense.
sorry. Yes, they do.
Okay, good.
They do.
Good.
So yeah, they worry about him finding out.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, it was just one of those issues where you read it and I'm just like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
This is really cool character building and all. So that's what's going on in Wonder Woman number 793. Even if you don't read Wonder Woman, you want to see a good Trinity issue.
Hmm.
This is it. Check out these variants. Here is the Jen Bartel 90s
I
variant.
love the colors on that.
Really
It
good.
glows.
Really good. And this is the Sway variant in honor of Nubia's 50th anniversary.
The way you described that issue almost sounded like a final issue, even though I know it's not, but it sounds like definitely kind of the end of a section of story before they begin something new.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Okay, speaking of something new and 90s, all of mine is 90s flashback books this week. It's Wildcats Number One. This is a book I feel like has been a long time coming. Uh, Ever since basically, DC got the rights to these characters.
Yeah.
Since New 52, we were kind of promised a Wildcats book that just never came about. We got the characters here and there, but finally the team is together. And this is great. So, Wildcats, if you don't know, was back when Image started, was Jim Lee's flagship book that he launched. Uh, and this is at some point DC with the merger with when Jim Lee went to DC, Wildcats moved to DC as well. So the characters are incorporated now. But this one takes the idea of Wildcats and twists it just a little bit to kind of retrofit it into the DC universe. So we do get a page of kind of a recap that is pretty similar to the original Wildstorm universe stuff. There's an alien race that fled their uh, home planet. As they were looking for a planet, they landed on one. It was covered with these aliens called Daemonites. That, if you remember old Wildstorm stuff, popped up everywhere. That was kind of their big villain in it. But then we jump forward and we have characters Grifter, we have Deathblow, we have Zealot, and they're all on missions to kind of hunt down the Daemonites and people who work for them, whether if they know they work for them or not. Um, but the team's leader, like the that's back at base, thinks that they're doing this job a little too over the top. There's too many bodies left behind when they do this. No, we're gonna send someone new with you when you do this. That will maybe help like, tamper this a little bit. So a classic character again from the Wildstorm universe, Fairchild Gen 13 is also joining the team. It's not a spoiler, it's kind of within the first few pages. Um, but it looks really fun going forward. It is very fast paced. It just goes from one kind of interaction that turns into a fight to another interaction that turns into a fight. There's even some kind of hints at what this team has been doing, and maybe they've kind of been around for longer than you thought, and had some hand in some previous DC events, maybe even events going on right now. Uh, and with a last page reveal that is really cool who they're going to be going up against next. The other really fun thing is they actually change what Wildcats mean
The acronym.
the acronym. So wild is just wild. They're just a crazy, I guess, version of the Crisis Aversion Tactical Squad. So their job is to basically prevent decent crises from happening by getting them before they have a chance to ramp up. So if you were a fan of the original Wildcats, it does have a lot of that feel, a lot of the same characters. Of course, it's modernized. The suits are a little more tailored, um, less spandex, still some, but less. But I thought it was really fun, and I hope people try this one out because I feel like there's a lot of potential with these characters nowadays. So this is our A cover. We have our, I believe this is the Art Germ variant with Zealot. We have our, which is just perfect, we have our Jim Lee variant. Very classic feeling. There's some characters on there that do not appear in the book, but I'm really looking forward to them showing up. And then we have one of the most 90s things you'll see. It is a foil embossed Wildcats number one. No, this is not back from like 1993. Uh, but this is cool, but you've got to check with your store because this doesn't actually have a price on it. It's up to the individual store to price it, so prices will vary on that. And probably because of that, your store won't have a ton of them, so definitely check with them on that.
Yeah, I think ours have been going for $12,
Yeah,
and they look a lot better in person. So
it's
you,
very
you
hard to
can't do
get it.
justice on the
No.
camera.
And then we have a 1 in 25 variant. This is the spokes variant that we're selling to our customers for $15.
Okay, so it's the second week of Bad Idea comics coming out. There's only one of them coming out this week, and this is Orc Island number two. Number one launched last week. This is about a group of adventurers that head to a place called Orc Island to get this really valuable orc skull. So last issue they didn't even quite make it to the island. It was like them gathering
Hmm.
and on the way. This issue they make it to the island. Things are not as they expected. There's a lot more danger. This is it kind of turns almost into like a horror comic in a way because the things going on Orc Island are very weird and strange and very dangerous, and the orcs are a lot scarier than just dumb brutes.
Hmm.
Really good art, very quality. It's a long issue, no ads. There is no variant for this. It's all the things that Bad Idea are trying to do. They're trying to make like their super quality comics
Hmm.
that don't have like the millions of covers, and they have their whole other set of gimmicks. So
Yeah.
I don't know if your store sells these or not. We are one of the stores that do. If there's a comic out there and our customers ask for it, we jump through the proper hoops to get it. So just want to let you know, Orc Island number two is out. It was by what's his name? Joshua Dysart does the writing with art by Alberto Ponticelli.
It's very detailed art. He really packs in those panels with a bunch of stuff going on.
And even just the page quality as you're flipping through is
Yeah.
just top notch. So
Next up is another new number one. This is Sabretooth and the Exiles number one. So instead of like going through what the story is with this one, everything, what I feel like my duty about this one is to tell you kind of who this is for. So if you read the Sabretooth miniseries that just ended, I guess, a few months ago, or you're reading Hellions, this is those two books kind of coming together. So it's your team from Hellions, and now Sabretooth is going to be leading them, still dealing with the Krakoa stuff. But if you hadn't read those, I think it's maybe a little bit harder to get into because there's kind of a lot of story there with those other two series to catch up on. But if you had read those, if you're reading all the X-Men books, I think this is really fun. I think Sabretooth is one of the most fun characters right now during all the Krakoa stuff because he kind of just doesn't care about any of it. He's out for himself. So that is kind of who this is for. Sabretooth and the Exiles #1. And we have some variants for this. This is the Kasara variant. Very cool. I love Sabretooth with his furry collar. And that is the only variant I have for that one.
Okay, so next up, I had the delight of reading Moon Knight number 17, a series I have enjoyed thoroughly. This is by Jed MacKay with art by Cappuccino. And in this one, so Moon Knight has been going up against a group called the Structure. They're a group of vampires, and their leader is named the Tutor. Well, Tudor had two assassins come in that already beat Moon Knight up. Well, last issue, those assassins attacked Hunter's Moon, Moon Knight's sort of brother of Khonshu. And not only did they defeat him, but they sent a message by breaking his neck.
Oof.
Well, this issue, Moon Knight finds what they did to Hunter's Moon, and he lures the two assassins to the playing field he's more used to. He's like, I'll do a fight, but he tricks him into following them somewhere. And so they have it out once and for all. You don't want to make Moon Knight angry. Whenever he says, "I'm going to show you why people fear me," the villains are going to have a rough time. Meanwhile, we also get to see the Structure Vampire Club have a meeting, and it all culminates with a guest appearing who they didn't expect. So another good, action-packed, well-written, with good art issue of Moon Knight. I hardly have to sell this one.
Yeah, it's par for the course. It's another good
Most
issue.
people reading Marvel reading the Moon Knight at our store.
Yeah.
So here is the variant. This is the Medina Extreme variant.
Which is extreme, but also pretty cool costume idea with the red on there.
Yeah.
Okay, next up for me, it's our next issue of Batman versus Robin. I know everyone reading this is enjoying it. I haven't heard anyone, at least none of our customers, they've all been loving this. And this is a really cool issue. So in this, it was kind of teased at the end of a previous issue that Damian now has the other Robins and Bat family under his control. So he is wearing this suit, and since he is working for the Demon, he's got a lot of power. And in this one, he gives each of the Robins, Nightwing, Tim, Stephanie, and Jason, a magical artifact to help them as a weapon. And these are pretty powerful artifacts. So if you ever wanted to see Nightwing with a flaming sword, this is the issue for you. But it's also, what has been great about this is it's action, but in a very poignant way, because Batman has to fight basically his kids, and this is a very hard thing for him to do. And we've had Alfred in this book, surprisingly.
Right. Back from the dead.
More is revealed about that, and I'd say probably one of the most emotional last few pages of a book I've read in a long time. So just another great issue of Batman versus Robin. And yeah, he does have that. Damien has that bat suit in it. I hope we continue to see that because it's a great costume. And the only variant I have for this is the 1 in 25 Fushio variant that we're selling for $15.
So this week, Marvel and DC both have some very major facsimiles that you can get of really expensive books, if you didn't get them as a facsimile, that is. First up is Detective Comics number 38, the first appearance of Robin the Boy Wonder. So this is a facsimile, of course. If you want to read this, see all the ads, just, check it out without having to try to hunt down the original, and all the thousands of dollars that is worth. Of course, this is by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, and then Marvel has 51 years later. In 1991, they released New Mutants '98 for
51 years later? Oh, I was thinking not 51 years ago. 51 years after.
Yeah, this is from 1940. This is some people coming up with a new character in 1940 that we still know to this day, major character. 51 years later, Marvel is doing, they're still coming up with new characters. We have first appearance of Deadpool, along also with Gideon and that copycat character, which pretended to be Domino. So this is the other facsimile out from Marvel this week. So two sort of major books that you may just want to have in your collection to check out, see what all the hubbub is about without having to put down the originals.
So you aged me up
What
51 years.
let me just say, one of these books I have a few copies of. The other I've never seen in person.
You be the
But
judge.
there's still time. There's still time.
Yeah, exactly. Better stuff comes in all the time. Okay, so next up for me, I've got our next issue of Star Wars High Republic. This is issue number 2. Of course, this is the series. I've had a lot of people ask me, "Oh, what do you think about High Republic already starting back at a new number 1?" Well, there's a reason for that. It's all because of their publishing initiative, where the first series took place like about 200 years before Phantom Menace, and now is like 150 more years. So it's not that, oh, Marvel's just doing another number 1. This is actually what all of these Star Wars High Republic books are doing right now as they tell this grand story. So it's not like, oh, I collected the first series and they already renumbered. This is basically a whole separate thing. But this continues to be great. We find out more about what's going on Jeddah, the kind of Force pilgrimage planet that we know gets destroyed in Rogue One. But it's not just Jedi who follow the Force. There's other religions at that time that have different names for the Force, but they all know that this planet is a kind of a centerpiece of that. And you get to kind of find out some of the political sense between all the different followers of the Force, and just learn about some new characters too that I think are really cool. So I don't think there's any like major first appearances in this, but it continues to be a great series. So that is Star Wars High Republic number 2. And we have this variant. This is by Stott. And we have a 1 in 25 variant by Rod Race. We're selling to our customers for $25.
Okay, so also out this week is Venom number 13. It says in the corner there, spinning the dark web.
Ah,
That's right. This is a lead in to Dark Web Alpha. So
one of
it's
our first.
yes, I don't think this is considered an official part of it,
Mhm.
but it's definitely a lead into it. So lately Eddie Brock has learned that, he's stuck in that weird garden thing with Meridius and all those other Kings and Blacks. He has learned lately that it is his destiny to become Meridius. That is his future, and that in fact all the Kings of Blacks he sees are versions that he will have to go through eventually, all the way up to Bedlam. It's all him, and he knows that one of these versions attacked and tried to kill Dylan, and so he's wrestling with the fact this is going to be me. How can that be? Well, what's easier than somebody just wrestling their head is he gets to talk with that version. So a lot of this is him arguing with the version of himself that fought with Dylan last issue and being like, "Why would I do this?" And he's like, "Well, you're going to, and you have reason." And so pretty interesting, weird conversation that a writer like Al Ewan, I'm sure, loves to write, right
Yeah.
up his alley. But later in, some other things happen, and Eddie Brock ends up in limbo. And when he's in limbo, he's going to meet a major X-Men character. I love saying X-Men. I can't believe it just for
EX
that.
dash X.
Yeah, yeah.
Freshman.
And of course, that's all leading into Dark Web. If
Mhm.
you've read anything about Dark Web,
A lot
you
of
know
limbo.
who's going to be in it. You could probably figure out who this character is who appears by the end of the book. So the rest I will leave up to you to read and find out for yourselves. And as far as the variant, we have the Sinclair and Hitch variant for that issue.
And I've got our penultimate issue of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. So this one I don't want to reveal too much about. It is a penultimate issue, so this is where most of your big fighting goes down. You kind of get to see all of your heroes in little vignettes about They're fighting in the Dark Army, team ups, all of that. You get some great Jonathan Kent moments being Superman and doing some great Superman one-liners as he fights. But the thing I will reveal is one of the major villains for Dark Crisis dies in this issue. But there's been a couple, but another one gets a major upgrade. So you'll have to read it to find out, but last page is pretty crazy, and it's going to be interesting to see long term what this means for some of our characters. So it is Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth number 6 of 7, and we have this 1 in 25 tongue variant that we're selling to our customers for $15.
Okay, another of the many number ones out this week. A lot of indie
So
number
many.
ones is Two Graves number one. This is by Genevieve Valentine with art by Ming Doyle. And I remember talking about this on Comics of the Future. The solicitation was very vague.
Hmm.
And I have to say, after reading the first issue, I'm still a little confused, but that's the way this is written. This is supposed to be a bit interpretational. This is them intentionally slowly rolling out what this is about. So I'll tell you, to the best of my ability, what this is about. It is about a girl who seems to be on a drive in a truck with a character who seems to be Death. Part of this issue is they avenge the death of a friend of hers. But then a lot of it is just them traveling together. They're traveling to the sea where you get the sense maybe she's going to die or maybe she's more than she seems. But also interspersed in the story, there is a lot of biblical imagery. There's a lot of mostly biblical, a little bit mythological. There's some very big things in the background here that it's hard to figure out how it all fits in. This is an indie book for somebody who likes their indie books to roll around in their head, who are
Mm.
willing to wait and read a few issues to figure out what fully is going on. It's more about like poetic storytelling than it is about linear storytelling. So if that's more your style, you may really like Two Grays. But if you want more of a linear story where you can easily explain what it is
Hmm.
first issue, the way I'm so clumsily showing, and it's hard to explain it. Then I don't know. But the art style is I thought I like the art style because it's simple in parts,
Hmm.
but then they get to the biblical imagery and all of a sudden it's complex.
Hmm.
It is definitely being intentionally rolled out that way. So that's about the best I can do in describing what Two Graves issue number one is about. I'm trying to connect it with that right reader though.
Yeah.
And so we have the variant. This is by the interior artist Ming Doyle as well.
I really like Ming Doyle, and she hasn't done anything for quite a while that I'm aware of, so it's nice to see her back. Okay, my next book is I'm loving every issue of Ghost Rider, and look at that romantic cover there. Well, this is Ghost Rider number 8, and in this now Johnny Blaze and Talia Warroad are teamed up, and something has sent them on a road trip to Chicago. But on the way, it's funny because I like how this book kind of plays with um extreme versions of just real things. Like one of the villains in the previous issue was just like scary truck driver. It's all kind of road related. This time, it's if you live around where we do, you do see a lot of the times deer jumping out of the woods at a car, unprovoked. That's just what they do. But in this one, there is hundreds of skinless animals that just keep diving their car as they're making their road trip. So every issue of this is just kind of a new crazy adventure for these characters. But we do get a little bit of Exhaust, the character in this, but it looks like the next issue is going to be mostly about him. But I'd say the other thing in here is you find out what War Road, what her ability she has can do when they're combined with Johnny Blazes, and it's pretty awesome. So I hope they explore that even more going forward. And there may even be, as this cover suggests, a hint of romance by the end of it. So that is Ghost Rider number 8. We also have our Cocolo Extreme variant. I like how you just can't make Ghost Rider too extreme. He just looks like another Ghost Rider. He kind of looks like Danny Ketch there. And then we also have the Brian Hitch Miracle Man team up cover, which I don't see them going to the same hanging out in the same places, but okay.
Okay, so I read Avengers number 62. This is by Jason Aaron with art by Ivan Fiorelli. And on the cover here, we have Agamotto, who was the Sorcerer Supreme of the Avengers 1 million BC. He was the original Sorcerer Supreme. So most of this issue, actually all of it, takes place back in their era, 1 million BC. And it follows Agamotto as he has a battle with Mephisto, and they talk about the future of the Marvel Universe. He has shown visions of the future. Mephisto is all like, "There's no point in you battling. You're trying to help these ape creature humans, and they're just going to get worse." And it ends. Sort of the ending is the Avengers 1 million BC running into the modern day Avengers. And this is setting up for Avengers Assemble, the big crossover that is going to end Jason Aaron's run on Avengers. So that is what is going on in Avengers number 62. We have this Macone Extreme variant as well.
Okay, then I've got our next issue of Superman Son of Kal-El. This is number 17. And much like the Wonder Woman issue you were talking about, this is a very sweet issue. Um, because in this, uh, we finally get a moment of Jonathan and his dad actually being able to talk now that his dad is back. This is still kind of part of that return of Kal-El. And they've missed out on a lot of stuff, but something happens that kind of makes them both stop and have a one-on-one moment, and it is very sweet. Uh, I know some of the panels, that kind of the final panel was shared around, but it's just really nice. I like Dad Kal-El, that is kind of this version now. This possibly has a first cameo appearance of an upcoming character, but it's definitely in the cameo realm, other than the first appearance. Right. So that is Son of Kal-El number 17. And we have a variant. This is the uh, Jiang variant, which is really cool. Their suits look really cool on that.
Okay, so there's another new comic from new publisher Bad Idea Publishing. It is Ninja Funk number 1, and yes, that is a David Mack cover. So let me tell you what this is about.
And whatnot.
What did I say?
Bad idea.
Oh, I've already passed the bad
Yeah,
idea. This is from What Dot Publishing. Sorry about that. Thanks for the catch.
Yeah.
So this is by Steve Schuett with art by JPG. This is sort of comic where it's all about the wild characters and the weird characters that they meet. We got characters with names like Laser Wolf. We have another character named McFly. We have a character named Wolfgang. I mean, when two members of a three-member team have Wolf in the name, yeah, they're going for sort of weird extreme stuff. So the team name is Ninja Funk. They're in a universe where things are just like out of whack, and they're trying to protect people and trying to get the universe to kind of make sense again. It's a sort of comic where the villain group is named Bad Music, like bad being BAD, like some sort of acronym. And the whole thing, the climax happens at a big space concert, where there's a huge explosion. It is definitely an indie comic for people who sort of, I mean, right away, and he even does one of the variants, it reminds me of like a Jim Mahfood comic, where it is more about the wild character design and the wild art and the situations that range from humor to sci-fi to adventure than it is about here's some linear story you have to pay real close attention to. I thought the art was sort of the strong point to it. Moment to moment, there were some that amused me, and others I was like, "Wait, where's this coming from?" Or this character is so out there. I mean, one of the characters in this, he gets his own. He's a robot. He gets his arm blown off, and they send him to buy a new arm, but instead he buys a pink polo shirt because he thinks it's going to make him look cool. That's the sort of book it is, But that's done. You're supposed to smile and laugh at it and go, "Oh man, these characters."
It's a little like God Hates Astronauts, just like a little absurd.
I can see that
Yeah.
for sure. So that is what this book is about. If you're that sort who likes a book that sounds that way, you might like it. So a lot of really good variants on this, however. So here is the Kirkham variant, obviously after Todd McFarlane, which he wrote down there by
Yeah.
his name. Here is the Cormac variant. I think we all know what that is referring to.
Yeah.
You got to catch them all. Here is the Regal variant. That's one of our characters, Laser Wolf. Here is the Jim Mahfood variant. It's funny because I read it before I went through the variants. And I mean, maybe in the back of my mind, we talked about
Yeah.
this on Comics from the Future, but I was like, man, this is kind of Mahfood, but different. And then, oh, yep, he did one of the covers. And then we have this 1 in 10 Fleets variant. And those heavy stray dog vibes.
Yeah.
We're selling this for $15. There is a 1 in 25 Kirkham variant that we're selling for $25. So once again, it's that McFarlane pose, but with one of the other characters. That's the McFly character. And lastly, we also have the 1 in 50 Crease variant. We are selling to our customers for $45.
Next up for me, we've got, let me make sure I got it. Amazing Spider-Man. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 13. And where we left off with the last one, we found out there was two hobgoblins. So this issue is mainly a fight between the two hobgoblins and Spider-Man. But I will tell you, this has our first appearance of Gold Goblin in it. He appeared on one of the variants, that Blinds variant, for a previous issue, but it was just a reflection.
Yeah, just a cover
Just a
appearance.
cover appearance. This is actually his first appearance. Of course, as Norman Osborn. That's everybody knows that. But very cool to see, and I'm excited for that new Gold Goblin mini series to find out more about his suit and all of that. But we have this really awesome variant for this. This is the Stegman Extreme variant. That I love that look for Spider-Man. Really cool. You out
Okay,
of stuff?
I think that is it.
Oh, I'm almost okay.
Oh, you
I've
have
got
more?
two more. I've got two
Whoa.
more. We also have Spider-Man number 2. This is the Into the Spider-Verse number 2, and in this one, we actually, if you had been reading the uh, Into the or Edge of the Spider-Verse series that happened right before this, basically every character that was in that comes into play in this issue. So I like that. It's rewarding if you read that. You kind of know where each of them are coming from, and it's just a nice surprise for that. I felt like I already knew them when I was reading this. So very fun issue of Spider-Man. Some
I do
craziness.
still have one more.
Okay.
I got thrown off because all my variants were
All your
gone. This
variants are gone.
doesn't have a variant. So I read Gospel Number One, a new image series, and it is done by a writer, artist, creator. His name is Will Morris. He does all the art, all the writing, and he said he did this somewhat in the style of Miyazaki,
Mhm.
which you can kind of see there. And what it is about, it is set in 1538 during the reign of Henry VIII. Even though Henry VIII is not in this, it's just that's sort of the time period it's happening in. It's about this one knight named Matilda. You kind of see her down there. It's hard to tell what kind of knight she is. It's almost like she might be a holy knight
Mhm.
or like a holy warrior, maybe. I don't know. But there are all these tall tales about all these great things she's done. So you get to hear one of the tales, and then you find out, oh, wait, this other character was there for it. Now let's see what she really is about. And it turns out she's looking to do great things, but it's hard for her to find things
Mhm.
to do. Like things don't really go her way, and so they just make up that they went her way. Well, anyway, you follow the real character, and by the end of the book, something does happen. This sort of devil character appears who you suspect is going to bring her into some true adventure. So it's sort of a getting used to the world, getting used to the art style and the characters. There is no variant for this. I mean, this is the whole thing. So if you like that sort of an art style and an indie book that just takes you to a very interesting time period, that you may want to check out Gospel issue number 1. And that was my last one.
And I did have some variants for Spider-Man as well. We have the Bagley variant. We have the Extreme Savrin variant, which is very extreme, explosions everywhere. And we have a 1 in 25 Ramos variant. Very cool that we're selling to our customer for $20. And then my last book, just real briefly, is this is Wolverine number 27. And in this, we pick up where Wolverine has died and been brought back on Krakoa. But this time, when he gets brought back, he is the savage version of Wolverine. And Beast seems to have a plan for this new savage Wolverine that you'll have to check out. So I just thought that was cool. I like that we're going back to that version of Wolverine. And that one has a variant. This is the Asrar variant. And then that is it.
Okay.
No more
Yeah.
number ones.
So 27 different comics we just went over and all their variants and incentives. I hope we have done our job well. When you go in your comic store, whatever day you go, you feel like you know what you're doing, which books you connect with, especially when you have that many new number ones.
Yeah.
Most people are not just going to buy all of them. So thank you for watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get up to 2K. We're getting there little by little.
Yes.
So become a subscriber. We do these videos every single week. Also on Friday, we'll be back with Comics from the Future. And for those of you who do the Whatnot thing, our compatriot Megan will be selling comics tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time on our Whatnot channel. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time.